Welcome to our continuing series of virtual voices hosted by World Information Transfer and focusing on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Our speaker today is Mr. Brett McCall, who is a seasoned brand strategist and creative leader with a background in cultural anthropology and entertainment, which enriches his approach to marketing and consumer engagement. He has spearheaded successful campaigns for Fortune 500 companies and played pivotal roles at major agencies like Omnicom, Y&R Brands, and Edelman, fostering a creative and collaborative culture. At INDEWORKS, he leverages his expertise in marketing, entertainment, and digital media to deliver innovative solutions driven by data insights and creative intuition, serving clients such as Microsoft, PepsiCo, and Wrigley. Over to you, Mr. McCall.
Thank you, Dr. Durbach. Thank you for having me here, and I appreciate having the forum to. I would say that entertainment and storytelling was a part of that. When I was a kid, it was the things of me sneaking downstairs and wanting to watch a late night movie with my dad, or also the opportunity to listen to music with my dad. And music, in a lot of ways, every song is a story. And I think that and I didn't realize this till later in my life, that was a reason why I kind of do what I do, and the kind of the evolution of that. And I think part of that, as I grew up through high school, and when we had the ability, I always had a camera in my hand. So it could be a still camera or a film camera, and then it turned into a video camera, and was always wanting to tell stories. Some of those were completely ridiculous, and I hope that those will never see the light of day. But in other cases, I will say that it was kind of the beginning of I see now as my career. Part of that, when I decided to go to school, I had really no idea what I wanted to do, and I was thinking about this last night, that my father, as I was in college and couldn't, and I had mentioned to you before that I wanted to be in marine biology, but I went to a school in Illinois, which doesn't really work. So in the Midwest, and I came across potential psychology, didn't really totally find a fit. And then I did with cultural anthropology, because I thought that there was a part of that, which was the understanding of the story of our human beings and what they do and how they work. And I thought that was really interesting. And I saw a really great way of combining cultural anthropology and film, and the ability to tell those stories. So when I was at school, I actually created a major, which they now continue to use, as a combined thing of ethnography. And that was something that I was really excited to put together, and have kind of used aspects of that throughout the rest of my career. When I got out of school, I went to work for Paramount Television on a TV series that was actually based out of Chicago. That was, if many of you know, there was a movie called The Untouchables, and this was a TV series that was being produced, and it went for 2 years. From that, I worked in both television, film, and commercial work around the world. And it was one of those places on the production side to be able to tell those stories. And those stories could be coming off of a script. It could be also something that we're telling, a brand story. And a brand story could be, I'm telling the story of American Airlines and why you should be flying with American Airlines. And that was especially early on my career, it was something that was exciting and a lot of fun. From there, I went into live production. And live production was, I did tours with the Rolling Stones, U2, and producing those at a large scale in arenas and stadiums. And again, we go back to this idea of this is telling those artists' stories through their songs and helping them and allowing them to do that at audiences of 60 and 80,000 people at each venue. And that was an exciting time, and it was a balance of doing things with large artists, but then also with large brands. And from that, it allowed me to go into advertising and marketing. And this was the beginning, in a lot of ways, of running creative for brands. So you had mentioned I worked, across from Wrigley, and you'll remember shows like The Biggest Loser. So Wrigley Extra Gum, I was not only helping write some of the storylines for that show based upon Extra Gum's participation. So weaving the brand itself through how we do that as a snack substitute instead of actually doing it, and then ending up directing parts of those episodes. And from there, I met my partner, and we created a shop, an agency called INDEWORKS. And INDEWORKS is truly what our emphasis is. It is truly about storytelling, and it's about the evolution of what that can be. With that, we have worked on a lot of different things, from feature films and documentaries. I was mentioning we're actually in the process of finishing up a documentary that is about women soldiers on the front line of the Ukraine and Russian war right now. One story that is extremely emotional, impactful, and something that we believe needs to be out there and told and allow people to see it so that they can understand the impact that has. And from what we were doing with INDEWORKS, we came across a property that was called the Environmental Symphony. And the Environmental Symphony we've been developing over the last 2.5 years. And we had the opportunity not only to perform at several environmental conferences, but one of the big ones was this last October, where we were able to do the Environmental Symphony at the UN, at the General Assembly Hall during United Nations Day. The Environmental Symphony is a orchestration, so it has 5 movements, and it has 5 films that go with each of those movements. And there is a narration that goes with those. So it goes through not only the creation of Earth into the Industrial Revolution, where we were in the sense of what Earth was, in the potential transfer of where we've gotten to now, and where we're in a dire place with climate. But there is hope, and I think there's hope with the people that we have, hopefully on this call, but also with a lot of other people who are making a lot of change. So I don't think that we can ever say that we can go back, but we will get to a place, hopefully, that will be a place that will be good for the human race around the globe. Fingers crossed. So That is something that we did in October, and we had the opportunity to meet with a lot of really good partners. And out of that we've had the opportunity to build the Leadership Academy and working with partners to do that. From that, we did the launch of the Leadership Academy at Davos. If any of you have been to Davos, it's an amazing opportunity. Every world leader is there. Every potential of making a difference in this world. You can meet the people that will not only help you maybe from an investment standpoint, but also from an impact standpoint. And we were with many different influencers and also impact people that we're really happy to have on board. And some of those people are Dr. Cameron, who runs the Brain Resource Center, and then the Ultra Institute, that both Miriam and Brett were so excited to be working with. And then we have Kevin Baird, who has not only been a part of the team to develop what we see as the next foundation of education. And what I mean by that is I think for us, as not only as individuals, I think education needs to change. The basis of education and curriculum is challenged at this point, because this is not how children or in some cases adults learn. So we need to hopefully adapt. And we also need to be able to reach places on our planet that don't have those opportunities. And I think it's a balance of both of those things. And so how we see this working, not only having a curriculum that works, that is both, and I think we talked about before, which is we need something that's not only educational, but we need inspiration. Inspiration is another part of that. And I think in our education system, especially in the US, we're missing a lot of that inspiration side of things, especially at places in the inner cities and in some cases the rural parts of our country. But that's around the world as well. And education is essential for us as a population on this planet to make sure that we can be positive. And I say that, and that could be with the unhoused, that can be with climate, that can be with, even if I go to the places of like arts and humanity and how we can move that forward. So one part of this, the Leadership Academy and what we're doing in education is the ability to have that curriculum. And that can go from leadership or down to a level of, and I don't say lower, but like in the sense of people who want to have certification. They want to be able to, if it's a person that's working in their community and have the ability to strive towards something that does better, not only for themselves, for their family, and for their community. And that can be solar panel technician, that can be, and the ability to deliver that education through a platform. So we have developed a platform that can deliver content and have translation across right now 1,000 different languages, and be able to not only educate but inspire those people to do something that they want to do for themselves and for their community. So it's those little things, because I think one of the challenges that we have is we always talk about climate, and we talk about homelessness, and we talk about all of these things, and they seem so grand and they seem so daunting, and the ability to tackle these things sometimes is one that, well, I don't even know where to start. And I think that the ability to take this to a local level and educating at that local level will help rise from that local level up to a global scale. So for us, this tech platform, which we have as Indie Connect, is the ability to deliver content, and that can be on any device. So that can be on your mobile device, that can be on your, it's omni-screen in that sense. It is also the ability, so you can imagine what it's like watching, Netflix or something along those lines, one of your favorite streaming services, and delivering content in that fashion. Not only delivering it that way, but also translating it in the language that they are most adept to, both listening and then speaking. And that is in text, and it's also in audio right now. So we use a technology, and I know a lot of people on this call have heard a lot of things about AI and Chat GPT and all of that. Well, the basis for AI for us with the platform is the ability to do the translation component of it. It's the heavy lifting that would take so many man hours to be able to do. And it can be and has been in the past a very daunting task, not only to do it in just say a translation to, specific more, I guess more used languages, but think about in sub-Saharan Africa or places around the world that you're having languages that aren't used on such a scale. And our ability to be able to not only translate and then be able to communicate. So that is our phase one with what we're doing with the academy and the platform. And it's going to be the ability to be able to do all of this content that will allow us to educate people, but also connect them. So not only connect them across what we have in your same country, but also the ability to hopefully connect people around the world. And so AI for us is the ability to translate. We also use a term called transcreation. Transcreation is the ability not only to translate, but give cultural relevance. And with AI now, that actually gives us the ability. So imagery and other things that kind of allow the viewer to be able to experience that content in a more relevant way. So that is the ability for us to connect with those, and I guess we will call them a learner or a student. The next phase that we have will be using AI and the ability to allow people to communicate. Because right now, which we know is language can be a barrier, and language can be a thing that in a lot of ways, not only learning, but also the ability for other people to communicate. So the idea is that this platform will have the use of it to be able to connect people as a community, as a global community, not only in say the field of their study, but also the ability for them to connect through different virtual communities. And this is in a focused way. We're not talking about what we know as social media right now. It's the ability to drive positive change and inspiration for people to make that positive change. So I think maybe you can all see from my very early age of wanting to watch stories is the ability now to be able to not only create the content to help educate people now, but our next generation. and then the ability to allow them to connect and drive some of that inspiration in their passions and what they really are excited about to make positive change around the world. So that it really, I feel like a big part of my life has all been about connecting people and driving that forward so that positive change can happen. And that can be with a brand, or that can be in a way of making change and a positive change for the climate.
Well, thank you very, very much for a very inspirational presentation. I mean, using AI for translation is a wonderful idea because they do such an effective job on it. And I use it myself when I translate the different languages. And using it to communicate with other people in the world and teaching them how to connect and communicate with various issues of the world may very well be a way of changing the environment and enabling for the sustainable development goals to be actually effective. So it was just fascinating listening to you. Thank you very much. And we will now move over to our moderator, Susie Halleck, who will be discussing all the questions that we have received. Over to you, Susie.
Thanks, Dr. Durbach, and thank you, Brad, for the interesting presentation. So our first question from the audience is, what would you advise someone who is trying to develop a sustainable brand strategy? Are there any general rules of thumb you would recommend he or she follow in that journey?
So sustainability it's a very broad term. So sustainable for a brand can be, how do I actually go carbon neutral for what our footprint is as a company, as a brand? That's part of it. Other parts are sustainability in the sense of what are our products doing in that world? Is our packaging and how we do the process of making our products, is that sustainable? The other part of it is sustainability in the sense of and getting to the place of being a B Corp. And here in the US, and not to use that as the model, but it's really about giving back. And I think that there are unique approaches. I think a big part of what you do from sustainability standpoint has to come out of the brand's ethos, that what that brand means. But it has to go towards what you stand for. And I hope that that's a positive thing. In most cases, missions are driven around positive change. So sustainability and creating a sustainable brand, I think, is multifaceted. I think the first approach, more than anything, is understanding who your brand is and then driving that change out of what your mission is. And that can be, how do we then drive, okay, even some companies in the sense of changing your, and we aren't functioning in an office world that much anymore. As I can look around the room, we're all basically at home or in some version of our home office. But for a long time, it was, how do you actually fix and be more efficient with the footprint, the offices and the spaces that you have around the world? So that can be for a restaurant group, and that can be for a retail chain. But for a brand or an agency, in a lot of cases, it's really about how do you change your approach to what you're doing in the world. And that can be how your products show up, how you change your distribution model or make it more efficient. And we're seeing some of that right now with autonomous trucks and being able to do that. That is not that I'm advocating for it, but at the same time, we will see I think in most of our lifetimes, we'll see autonomous trucks delivering things around different countries, and that will be efficiency. But I think sustainability comes in different fashions, and I think your brand needs to decide what that looks like, and know that your customer, in a lot of ways, because they want to see a reflection of who they are and they are as a person, to drive their purchasing power or their connectivity. So if you're even a nonprofit, I'm more aligned with certain nonprofits, and people are do that than others. So I think that change in sustainability needs to come from within.
Really helpful. Thank you. And what is your favorite part about working in brand strategy?
Interesting. I was asked this question a few months ago, and at first I was like, well, it's always been the thing that I've been doing for many years. I think one, more than anything, is being able to tell, just like creating a film about, in some cases, fictitious characters. When we're doing a documentary, it's about telling about real lives and real things that have happened in our history, or currently what's going on right now. If you approach it and do your job at a high level, brand strategy is really about truly telling that brand story, but it's connecting to their customer, consumer, and or viewer. And the ability to tell that story in an authentic and genuine way that can make positive change. Now, listen, I am not a person that is in a way doesn't believe that, yes, you have to sell products. That's how companies survive. But I think that those can go hand in hand in a positive way with what you're doing as a company, and connecting to people to help move that needle. And I think we have companies out there right now that are doing that. Bombas socks are a perfect example. For every sock that they sell, they are giving socks to people who are in need. I think, if we remember a while back, and I know that they're still in business, Tom did the same thing with shoes, the ability of the purchase of those shoes and giving shoes away for people who are in need. I think that's a simple way of understanding that. But to your question, which is, why do I do what I do and why do I enjoy it so much? It's the ability to tell those stories and create a conversation with that viewer or customer that can make that change, and also make that company successful.
Thank you. And you shared some examples, but are there any other unique or interesting projects, examples that you could share with the audience?
Right now, we have 2 different feature films that are in production. I mentioned that, and we're really passionate about the documentary project called Valkyrie that we are working on, that we hope to finish in the next month. That we want to get in the film festival circuit, to be able to tell the story of the women on the front lines of the Ukraine-Russian war right now. I think it's needs to be told. It's relevant, but it's also something that I feel with myself and my team, it's something that this story needs to be told to a broader audience. It's horrific. It's extremely emotional. And I will tell you, to see it's a story of 8 different women that the lengths that they go to protect their own community, to protect, and the strength that they have for that. But those small moments that they go to keep normalcy in their lives, but I'm going to put on makeup before I get in a tank. That is both amazing and crushing that they are having to go through these things that at this moment. So yeah, we want to make sure that we can tell that. A big part of what we're doing is creating this. We call it it's a content and conversation platform. And we already do it for big brands right now. We do it for 80% of the NFL. We do it for Major League Soccer, 4 or 5 different university systems here in the U.S. For the wonderful brand of NASCAR, so we can bring racing to people. We see the ability now that we have taken this platform and built what we have, working with the Leadership Academy and also the All True Institute and our other partners, the ability to take that platform and use it for positive change, not just delivering content and having those communities be more passionate about what they are. That is wonderful, and I think that we've been able to do that in a extremely powerful way. But the ability to now use that platform for change in education, in change in how we affect communities that need that help. That is really our goal from my company, INDEWORKS, and the ability to deliver that at scale, and being able to give these tools to people to be able to make their change at a local level, individual level, is, I think, is something that can be extremely powerful.
What advice do you have for students who are interested in pursuing a career in strategy or just in general?
So I will say this, my career was definitely not the normal path, and normal I put in quotes because there's nothing normal. Getting into when I was in school, if I didn't even think about brand. It was me wanting to not only I wanted to go into the Peace Corps, and a month before I was supposed to leave, I was offered a job with Paramount Television. So I said, well, the Peace Corps will be there. So I think this opportunity I need to take, and so I did that. And hopefully at some point I will get back to being able to do the Peace Corps. I feel there isn't a normal or a direct path into brand strategy. I want to say this because I truly believe it. I think understand what you're passionate about. So you need to understand your own brand as a person. And from that, start connecting with people who have that same passion. And I think that this goes to a person wanting to get into brand strategy, advertising, marketing, but it also goes to people wanting to get into entertainment, because a big part of my career has been in entertainment. And it's like, how do I become a brand, a band manager, or how do I become a producer of film? You need to do it. So do it at a small level for yourself, and then build from there, because your passion will come through for other people. At the end of the day, it's about that passion than anything else. And I will tell you, managing large creative teams and also producing TV series and all of these things, I'm always leaning into the person who is more passionate about it than the experience they have. Because sitting there and leaning on the experience that you have is not what's going to propel my project working with you forward. Your passion for what we're doing is what's going to do that.
Are there any interesting classes that you took throughout your career or while you were a student that helped prepare you for some of the work you do?
Um, I actually would say this. I would say don't ever overlook the elemental and the basic, the foundation classes. I will, when I was, I want to say I was about a semester away from graduating college, and I took, because I was interested in it, I took a graduate level but basic level elements of art appreciation, which you would never think would be interesting. It was probably one of the most interesting classes because it was a foundation to what other things that were kind of led to where I got to, because those basic classes or those foundational classes are ways how you approach and how you see things. It's different later when you've kind of fine-tuned your craft and you've gotten to those places, because that gets into specialty. But I think how you approach and how you look at something is something that's honed through those elemental ways of seeing things. And that could be, how do I see a subject? How do I read a story? How do I approach a brand? But those parts are a big part of that. So I think that there are books that you can read and do that. I think one of the key things to it is curiosity. For me, I'm just a curious person about anything. So I think if you want to get into brand strategy, you have to say, am I curious about everything? Sadly, I think that's a part of where I am, is anything can excite me. I can work on as I did years ago, I worked on a series for Gatorade. And then I turned around and was excited because we were creating a brand for the first number 5 polypropylene cup, the first recyclable cup that was ever created. Both of those can excite me, working with top athletes and creating a cup that actually can change a way of how we see recycling and doing that. And I think that curiosity and that passion is what kind of drives that forward. When I walked in 2 years later and went into a 7-Eleven and saw our coffee cup and our logo that we created on the bottom of that cup, but it had 7-Eleven on it, that made me so excited. It was like me as a little kid. So that curiosity and that passion is something that really drives that forward.
Considering your background in cultural anthropology and entertainment, how do you believe unique and diverse perspectives have influenced your approach to brand strategy and consumer engagement?
When I started out, I think it came from within. It was this story that I wanted to have the opportunity to tell, and the ability to take your experience and bring those forward. And that can be the story that you want to tell, but that also can be through a brand. In other words, if you can identify with their audience or their consumer or their customer, it's the ability to tell those stories. Over my career, I feel like I have had an opportunity to help brands start connecting with audiences that that they need to be able to tell stories that are different than just the very generic. In other words, evolving those stories. And I think a big part of that is from that diversity perspective, but not that it is diverse in the sense of that it's different, that everybody has a common core of who they are, and you want to be able to tap into that individual. And I think over my career, and with the teams that I've been able to work with, and the brands that I've had the opportunity to work on, that has really given me the opportunity to be able to do that. So from a diversity perspective, and I can actually use an example. The agency that I was running the creative team, so creative lead for the Affordable Care Act in the state of Illinois and Missouri, and the ability to start connecting to very diverse audiences, to explain to them that they'll have the opportunity to have health insurance and be able to do that. That initial campaign was extremely challenging. One, the timetable, but also the other is like the audiences go very, very diverse across the state of Illinois. If you can imagine the city of Chicago to like Southern Illinois, it is so different. And I would say that for any brand around the world and being able to connect with individuals, you have to really, and I think you brought up, curiosity and cultural anthropology go hand in hand. So the understanding of people and what motivates them. And when I use the word motivate, I use that in an extremely positive way. What really gets them out of bed? What gets them to want to deliver for their family, their community? What music do they listen to? Is a big part of how we connect. And they might not buy your product, but at the end of the day, understanding who they are and hopefully that the ability to make positive change is key. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I think a part of that really comes out of the ability to be curious and the ability to reflect who you are with other people.
Thank you. Yes, you did answer my question. What are the key trends in branding and marketing that you're seeing in recent years, or maybe ones that you find most interesting or make you hopeful for the industry in the future?
Well, I feel like I started my career and I came through the creative path, and that came out of entertainment and doing that, and it was an interesting way of how I got into it. But one of the things that have happened over the last 15 years, and it would have been interesting if I would have saw that coming out of school, which is there are brands and agencies that have cultural anthropologists that are baked into their strategy team. And I think that is extremely unique. And I think it's smart in the sense of that connection. And you want to be able to deliver that truly authentic, authentic point of view. So I think what I'm seeing is from the strategy part of it, a lot of that comes through that original training around cultural anthropology and trying to be a part of a culture and grasp it without changing it. So I think that is one part that I've seen is really interesting. The other is what used to be entitled as branded entertainment. So the ability to take a brand and tell long form stories, and not just 30-second spots, and unfortunately we all are on our devices and we're getting digital ads on a constant basis. But I think what really comes through is being able to tell those long form stories that will really have those connections. And I look at early on and even now, because we are all still watching those, music videos is a big part of that, telling that band's brand story, and each of those songs come through in a different way, and that's a longer form, and being able to do that. And there are brands that are out there doing long form stories about not only about who they are, but really about their customers or their audience, and being very relevant about those stories more than anything else. And I think that is extremely impactful, not only for who who's already a part of your brand in the sense of that ethos, but also bringing other people into what you're doing. So I think that is a third component. And as we all know, if used correctly, AI is going to be a catalyst for change for what we're doing. And that can be content development, how we're using it, content and transcreation, the ability to do data analytics to get to insights that help. We're going to be able to hopefully change, from pharmaceuticals to policy to all of these things. And as long as we have guardrails on what we're doing and making sure that we have control of it, I think we can do a lot of positive change. And at the end of the day, and this is what I say to a lot of other audiences that I speak with, is AI is not going to take your job or your friend's job. What's going to take it is a person who is in your industry who understands AI is going to take that job. So it is a tool. It is a tool for efficiency. It's a tool for the ability to do deep dive in the sense of crunching numbers. I think talking about the ability to do translation at a level and a scale is something that has been extremely cost ineffective. And also, especially when you get into very languages that are very focused, it's very challenging. One of the things that AI does extremely well is when you talk about large language models, LLM, is the ability to keep learning. So one of the things that you have is this ability to keep fine tuning better at what the AI is doing for that translation, and that's amazing. And I think that in our lifetime, I think that we're really fortunate to be able to do that. So I am a proponent, but I also am a proponent from the sense of making sure that we're using it for positive change. So for that is, we have cultural anthropology, branded entertainment, developing stories that come out of brands, and using AI in a positive way.
Thank you. The last two actually tie into two other questions we have from the audience. So the first one being, people usually spend less and less time reading advertisements. Given these challenges, how can modern day marketers connect with their audiences? So it sounds like this long form storytelling is probably a method, but anything else to add there?
Yeah, I will go back to the first one, which is cultural anthropology and finding the insights of where your audience is. So the problem that we have right now is that media and digital advertising is taking, in most cases, taking a very shotgun approach. It's programmatic, so it's pushed out to everything, and it doesn't relate to that individual who's seeing it. So there has to be that personal and cultural relevance. Because why am I passionate about what I do? So you take the individual themselves. I'm a person that cares about the climate. I'm a person that likes Air Jordans. I'm a person that listens to, let's just say, old school R&B. I'm making all of these up, but understanding the individual and the person that you want to connect with is key, because most of what we're doing right now, it's driven by media efficiency and not, in a lot of ways, not effectiveness. Because I and many of my colleagues, storytelling is key to all of that and connecting to your audience. So if I'm selling a product or if I'm telling a story, I want to have the viewers to do that. So a big part of it from a media perspective, it's not about the big numbers. It's about how you're connecting with your audience specifically. So to your point, some of that could be long form content. Some of it could be that I'm tapped into people who are talking about cooking on TikTok. All of those are the right answer if your audience is there. So at the end of the day, it's not about blasting out what that is. It's more about making sure that you're showing up in an authentic way of where they're taking in that media or your brand story.
Thank you. And the second point was around AI. So one of the audience members is wondering, how do you ensure that AI-driven insights complement rather than override the creative intuition and expertise of our team members?
So that's one thing I probably should have touched on before. At the end of the day, the human, and I say that in broad ways, is the defining and deciding factor of what is seen. So even though we're using AI that goes 85 to 90% of the way, there is a human that is looking at it and making sure that all of that is correct. Again, it goes back to AI being a tool. So all of those things, and it could be content, it can be translation, it is all that the human being has the ability to make sure that that connection from what that is from AI is there, and that it's authentic and genuine. The human has to be in that. Now, do I think 20 years from now, we're going to get to a place where AI is going to be able to, close the gap? Yes. So it'll go to 95, 98%. You still need the deciding factor of a human being to say, this is relevant, this is authentic, and this is genuine. We're definitely not there yet now, but what it drives is the ability to either crunch data a lot more efficiently and effectively. It's the ability, so from language, it's the ability to translate at scale. That is something we've never been able to see before. It's the ability to touch parts of our world from a translation that we've never been able to achieve. And that's going to allow us to tackle some of these big problems of education and climate and connectivity, and hopefully getting over some of our bias easier, and hopefully make more a positive difference.
Really fascinating. Thank you. What qualities do you think a modern leader of a global Fortune 500 company or any company needs to have in this modern day work environment?
I think first and foremost is showing up in an authentic way. I think a big part of that comes from empathy. If you're not empathetic, then I think that that's a huge loss. I think almost every company needs to show up for positive change. I think we need to change how companies approach. It should not be about the stock price. It needs to be how they're affecting positive change around the world or in their own community. You're a small community. I mean, that's how a lot of companies came about. It was about always the balance of the product that you made and the positive change that you made in your community. And as we've become global, I think that we need to get back to that very authentic and basic approach, which is making positive change goes hand in hand with what we're doing. And that for leaders, empathy is critical, because if you don't have empathy, then I don't think you're an effective leader.
How do you ensure the continuous development of your team and improvement of their skills on an ongoing basis?
So we have a very core team to INDEWORKS. We have a great partnership with what we're doing with UN Leadership Academy. And I would say not only from the past of when I was leading teams and now, you have to know your team. So you have to balance between working extremely hard together and getting to a common goal. Having them understand the goal and how we're going to get there, giving the pathway is critical. I think saying just work hard isn't the best way. And I think, unfortunately, there are many companies and leaders that it's like, you're lucky that I'm giving you a paycheck, which is unfortunate. I think part of that is understanding your team and what they're passionate about, and allowing them to bring that forward, not only in their work and in their off time. So for a lot of in my past agencies that I've worked for and managing 100+ people, over a certain amount of time, giving them the time off to be able to explore that. And that could be photography, painting. In a lot of cases, coming from Chicago, we had people that we would put through improv classes. So that, allowing them to kind of flex that that creative muscle in a way of being able to give them opportunities will always pay off in a way back to the work that you're doing at the company.
How did you formulate or decide on the movements included in the environmental symphony that you played?
So that the environmental symphony as a symphony was created by Dr. Alan Zavad. He created the music of each movement. He did that in 2009 and 2010. He then performed it in 11, 15, and then and 19. The narration was created by Dr. Alan Finkel. And Dr. Alan Finkel was the chief scientist of Australia. So that narration that was a part of it came from them. And we licensed the rights to do that. We created the 5 short films that go with each of those, to be able to give that visual representation of the music and the narration, to bring that forward. And we were so fortunate to be able to showcase that at UN Day this past year. It was something we were really excited to do at that scale.
Thanks for sharing. And in our final 2 minutes together, what are your goals or the opportunities you see for your company to grow, have an impact on society as you look to the future? Any points you'd like to share with us to close out?
Yeah, our motto at INDEWORKS is independent thinking in a connected world. And for us, the hope here is being able to allow and connect people and their passions. So I know that can sound very daunting and also very grandiose, and that's not what I'm trying to do. But I think the ability to work with our partners, our ability to work with brands, and our ability to tell stories, and then through the ability to, with AI, to do translation, we can tell these stories and connect people at scale. And there has not been an opportunity or a moment in time that we've been able to see this at what we can see right now. So that is for us what we're really striving and right now achieving with what we're doing with not only the platform but also the programming that we're creating.
Thank you. I'll turn now to Dr. Durback to close out.
Thank you, Susie. My question is this: using storytelling for education, inciting curiosity, passion, empathy, and communication usually begins developing during childhood. I would like you to think about what is it in your relationship with your father that enabled you to develop these characteristics to become who you are?
Ooh. All right. Sorry, I'm getting choked up. My dad passed away a year ago, so I would give that to both my mother and my father. They they cared deeply not only about I'm the oldest of four boys, and allowed us to kind of follow our passions. That said, which is powerful, because I think a lot of a lot of parents try to pigeonhole your children and do those things. So empathy or support came through that, but we also saw it through our own community. So my father we grew up in a small town. My dad was the dentist in our town, and we were connected to everybody in our community, which is when you're a teenager, it is horrible. It's like everybody knows your business, but looking back, it's powerful. Sorry. Yeah, you can't pick your parents. And you can be fortunate enough to get parents like I had, so lucky in that way. Sorry. Ooh, hit me.
Well, thank you very much. That was very important for a lot of people to hear, especially those that have children. And we also,
But I will say this: you can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends. And I've been very fortunate, and always know this, because there are people who have gone through some pretty daunting things in their own growing up. But find those people that you create a family around you that support you.
well, that is true also, but it depends on what kind of a basis you were taught before.
Yeah, very true.
But anyway, thank you very much for
Thank you.
presentation, and also we wish you the expansion of your storytelling worldwide for the benefit of all of humanity. Have a very good week, and goodbye.
Thank you so much. Thank you all.